Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Today, I'm very, very excited. We are talking to a wonderful person, Mary Jo Rapini. She will help us to navigate and help us deal with anxiety and feelings of loss. Before we get to Mary Jo, I just want to remind people, and maybe for some of you, it's going to be new information as to why we do what we do and who we are. So my name is Irina Koifman. I'm a doctor of nursing practice, and I am a proud board member of Life and Breath Foundation. This foundation was founded by a wonderful person, Sean Hall, whose mother passed away in 1996 after battling sarcoidosis for 13 years. And in her memory, in 1998, he created this wonderful nonprofit organization. And our primary goal of our Life and Breath Foundation is really to build effective tools and to give sarcoidosis community the tools and the resources to help them through their journey. We are here to provide nurturing environment for those affected by sarcoidosis and its patients, and a lot of times as their caregivers. And we're also here trying to build awareness within the medical community to help combat this chronic disease. As you may very well be aware, I'm sure a lot of you, and Mary Jo, we have hundreds of people that sign up for this webinar, so it's very exciting. Many people are patients who are affected by sarcoidosis, but some are caregivers, and a lot of times they ask. The problem with sarcoidosis is that it takes years to be diagnosed because it's such a rare and very, it's a disease, it's actually called a snowflake disease because no snowflake, everything looks alike, but actually everything is different. And so people have such a different symptoms and such a variety of different, I guess, the things why they seek medical attention, that it's very hard to pinpoint. And majority of sarcoidosis is actually diagnosed years later, and it's through bronchoscopy or biopsies. And another problem with sarcoidosis is, although majority, the organ that affects majority of the time is lungs, but also there are people that have sarcoidosis in their eyes. Skin sarcoidosis is also pretty relevant, heart, brain, so it can be anywhere and everywhere. And some people have very, very mild symptoms or, none sometimes or moderate, but then some people, unfortunately, like Sean's mother, have such a severe case of sarcoidosis that they actually pass away from it. So we are also trying to really bring awareness to medical community because I talk to a lot of primary care providers who have such a few, they either have few patients with sarcoidosis that they've taken care of out of their 2,000 or 3,000 patient population. Or I even talked to a few doctors who said, I remember learning that in medical school, but I've never had I haven't had a patient, or I had a patient that came into me already with sarcoidosis and it was stable. So there was really nothing that, I could do. So Sean had developed this foundation to help patients, but also medical community to be aware of sarcoidosis.
Yes.
I do want to preface our webinar with a disclaimer. I just want to be clear and make sure that people understand that this webinar is not intended to substitute any medical or psychological advice. And you should always seek help of your doctor or psychologist or psychiatrist before making any changes to any of your regimens, or if you have any questions, make sure you call them first. This is a very educational webinar to bring more information to you, but it's not substituting medical or psychological advice. And we also have numbers here, and I'll make sure that they're going to be visible again. But we have crisis hotline, text line, substance abuse and mental health service administration hotline, and National Alliance for Mental Health hotline. So, if there's any immediate problems, if you're feeling that, there's danger to your life, please call 911, or you can use these helplines. And actually, if you will write them down, you can have them for later. Maybe you can share it with your friends. These are wonderful nonprofit organizations that help people with things like anxiety, depression, and also substance use. So, with that being said, I wanted to welcome Mary Jo Rapini, a wonderful speaker and psychologist whose mission is to build and encourage healthy, strong relationship, beginning with the most important relationship of all, is one with yourself. Mary Jo, I can't wait to talk about that. We need to unpack this, and I can tell you, I think now more than ever with COVID and children being almost homeschooled, many parents, they spend so much time with their kids, and then maybe with their loved one, that they forget that they need to take care of themselves first. And this relationship with yourself is really lacking right now. So I can't wait to unpack this with you. Mary Jo has appeared on Fox 26 with Ask Mary Jo. She's featured in CNN, TLC, Discovery Health, Steve Harvey Show, and Dateline NBC. If you guys don't think that this is good enough, Mary Jo wrote not one, not two, but three books, Recoupling, Start Talking, and Is God Pink? I can't wait. I think Is God Pink, the name is just, it's so catching, and I can't wait to, Mary Jo, buy and read your book. I'm very excited about that. Mary Jo runs a YouTube channel called Reaction Reset, and it's free. I did subscribe, and I have to tell you, Mary Jo, I listened to some of it, and we'll talk more about it. I don't want to steal your thunder, but it's the reaction reset. I think it's so fundamental for anybody to learn and understand. And I remember when I read Viktor Frankl, who said that there is a space in between the stimuli and your reaction. I was like, wow, this is just fantastic. So we'll unpack that and talk about that. But also, Mary Jo has a very low cost, $1, less than $2 relationship guide that's focused on common issue that we all face. And it's formatted in a therapy session like format that it can help you gain self-awareness and helpful insights to resolve your issues. So Mary Jo, again, thank you so much for being here. I know that you're so busy and you do so much, and it's just an honor to be able to speak with you today. Let's start with the name of our webinar is really anxiety and feeling of loss. So maybe we'll talk about feeling of loss a little bit later, but right now in this very strange new world for all of us, COVID, and now knowing what you know about sarcoidosis and how it affects people in many different ways, and especially with lungs. And we know that that COVID is a very much lung disease. People have such a high anxiety about everything, leaving, doing something, but they also have anxiety about staying home. So can you just talk to us a little bit about anxiety in general, anxiety during COVID, and then we'll talk about what can we do to maybe help ourselves.
Sure, and thank you, Irina. The first thing I want to say is I'm really grateful to be with you all tonight, and I hope you all trust and feel safe, that you can chat, that you can send your questions, because the best webinars are the ones where we get actual involvement, and the involvement is for you viewers who are watching and learning and asking questions that I think, the answer may be the key you're looking for. I go at life as a way that no act is random. Things happen to us, and we are in situations that we may not have asked for, but our reaction is what determines how we go through it and the choices we make. So we are seeing a real uptake in all anxiety across the board. I see it with my couples, I see it with my chronic illness patients, and I'm sure I see it with you all, and I'm sure I'll hear about it tonight with this chronic illness. The thing to remember about anxiety is everyone has anxiety to a certain extent because it's exacerbated by stress. And when you get stressed, you start this whole process of negative thought. And most of the negative thought are fear tapes. They're tapes within our head that remind us we're not good enough, we have a bad disease, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, we're not the same person, we've lost a part of who we are. And the thing to remember about most negative tapes is they're not true, but they're ways of your mind triggering things. So your mind is trying to send you warning signs to prepare, to get ready. It's actually a mechanism gone haywire, because it's sending you messages that make you frightened or make you alert to things that basically aren't true, but it's trying to keep you on edge. It's trying to get you prepared for something. So when you feel the feeling, instead of getting fearful of it or getting scared or going into the panic mode, what I want you to do first is to take a pause. Allow yourself a pause, just to simply sit and be still and then breathe. When you breathe in, you do that for you. What you breathe out, the words you say, the actions you do may or may not be for others, but it's important that you breathe in, that you inhale, and you inhale slowly. As you gain control and slow down your heart rate, you start feeling a little bit more, okay, I'm not going to go into panic mode. I'm going to be able to cope through this. You start breathing in slowly, you breathe out even slower. And then as you start doing that, I want you to go into a mode of what I call taking care of you. And it's simply going back to your basis. I am in control. These thoughts are trying to scare me, but I am enough. I can handle this. Everything right now is going to be okay. And then start that process, kind of rebuilding you. Then you can go through your checklist that I'd like to talk to you about, and maybe even encourage you to adapt. And that is, who could I call that would make me feel good or make me feel comfortable in myself? What can I do to trigger a response that I am stable, that I'm safe? And sometimes for people, that's as simple as, okay, I'm going to do something, a routine task. I'm going to take out the trash, or I'm going to have a favorite book that has all my favorite quotes. Some people like the Bible. Some people prefer another book, but they have that in a safe space for me, for themselves. I'm going to listen to calming music, whatever that is for you. I have a client right now that's struggling with sarcoidosis. I'm saying it wrong, I know, but and what she tells me is she listens to the Nutcracker because it reminds her of a happy time with her mother, going to the theater and seeing it when she was a small child. Whatever that thing is for you, you're going to do it at that time. For some people, it's not music at all. It's watching a funny video or whatever they want to view on their phone or on an app. Whatever those things are, it's important you begin accumulating them. And you're, in a sense, you're building your own care package. You can help calm yourself down and start feeling more in control. Anxiety, the whole idea of it is a warning system, but it goes wacko because it goes into high drive when we really don't need it. We overreact. And the part of the reason we're overreacting to anxiety right now is there's a loss of control in many areas of our life. Not only your illness, but with the government, with the pandemic, and with family, financial issues, loss of job, whatever it is you're going through.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I've been reading a lot about just watching the news and how much, people just feel anxious and depressed the more news they watch. So I made a conscious effort I want to be current. So I definitely, read and watch something, but never at night. And I made a conscious effort probably a few years ago when I told myself, I'm only watching right before I go to sleep, because I like to watch TV before I go to sleep. That's the only time I have to watch it. Something funny, episode of Friends or Frasier, anything, because I've noticed a huge difference, because when you go to sleep with a smile on your face, it's very different than when you go to sleep thinking, oh my gosh, I just read this news, there's fire somewhere. And it's true, it's happening. But I said, if you can't control it,
Mhm.
you shouldn't, I think, react to it. And I wanted to say something. When I mentioned Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist, he
Mhm.
actually lived through, I think he was in 5 different concentration camps during the World War II, and he
Mhm.
survived and wrote his book, The Logotherapy, and he's just amazing. But his famous work about, or his famous quote, and I'm going to read it because I don't want to get it wrong. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So I think, this is why it spoke to me so much about your, not only reaction reset, but when you said, when you start having feeling of anxiety, you need to stop and you need to breathe, because this is where I think we could be powerful. With everything that's going on that we can't control, you can control how you feel about how you feel about what you're feeling about, and then stopping. I think it's very important.
Exactly. And I like what you said, because I have a lot of patients who start a self-talk that is so negative. So
Mhm.
they're telling themselves things. I'm not good enough. I can't handle this. I'm in so much pain. It will overtake me. I won't make it. And when you start saying those things to yourself, you actually, your body responds. Your body is not just along for the ride. Your body is responsive to your words. So it's much better if you use empowering words like, I will make it through this moment. And if your mind comes back with, what will you do after this? Then I will make it through another moment. Many people have great ideas of what they can tell themselves, but they've never given themselves permission, or they thought it was silly if they actually talk to themselves in a positive way. But basically, if you talk to yourself the way a loving parent would, or someone who loved you dearly, a good friend would speak, you wouldn't be saying the things you're saying to yourself that completely make you fall apart. So
Yeah.
one of the things I think we have to learn is how to talk to ourselves. How do I encourage myself? Because let's face it, there are going to be times when people won't understand what you have. There will be times people won't validate you. There will be times people make you feel like a burden, or that you're just trying to get out of something. But those things are only affecting you if you allow it. If you say, you know what, they don't understand, and you have something to come back inside to lovingly speak to yourself, you can make it through this and you can strengthen yourself.
Great. Mary Jo, there's a question. The person is asking that sometimes she gets anxiety attack in the middle of the night,
Yes.
and sometimes she worries about going to sleep. Any tips on how she can deal with anxiety at night?
And you know what? That's a great question, because that is the worst time for it. And the reason it comes more at night is because, see, you're falling into a sleep, your brain is shutting down, and your defense mechanism is doing what it's supposed to do. It's quieting itself. So during the day, you have a defense mechanism that protects yourself from these thoughts, and you're busy. But at night, when things are quiet, the defense mechanism is starting to lower its vigilance. So when you have those, what you want to remind yourself is, I'm doing everything fine. I'm very healthy. My body and my brain are doing exactly what they should. And I think if you have a prayer, like when I wake up at night with anxiety about the next day or something that's going to happen, one thing that calms me down is I have a mantra, and I just repeat the mantra to myself, and I usually will just fall asleep. I don't know when. Some nights are better than others. Or, I have things that I can do that I know will put me to sleep. And one of them is if I get up and start reading. The worst thing about anxiety at night is people start telling themselves, oh my God, I won't be able to function if I don't get sleep. And that starts a cycle of worry, or they start thinking about things, and you don't want to think about things if you can help it. You want to do something that's going to help lull you back into that sleep. And if you have chronic anxiety, it's a good idea to talk to your doctor about maybe getting a prescription. So at night, you can go to sleep and sleep through the whole night. There are prescriptions that they give you, and many of my clients are on them that will help you sleep the night. But once again, you have to go to an MD to get a medication that's not going to hurt you, but it's going to help you get the sleep you need.
Or nurse practitioner. Want to have a plug for nurse practitioner?
Or a nurse practitioner, right?
Or physician assistant.
Yeah, and, you know, when I say doctor, I should just say healthcare worker, because
Healthcare professional,
nurse practitioner, or there's just a physician, a PA.
Yeah, physician assistant. Yeah. Well, this week is a nurse practitioner week. I'm a nurse practitioner, so if there's any NPs on the line, congratulations. Mary Jo, what is your thought on gratitude? Because I read a lot about how gratitude helps with anxiety, and when you said you have a mantra, I have it too, and mine actually has a lot to do with gratitude. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, you can. It's impossible to be grateful and anxious at the same time in the brain. It can't entertain those two things. So one of the reasons gratitude works so wonderfully is because it completely takes you to a new place. And if you have trouble coming up with things you're grateful for, I suggest before you go to bed or first thing in the morning, you start a gratitude journal. And you just write 3 things that you're grateful for or that happened today. They get very simple things like someone smiled at you, or you were able to walk a block today by yourself. Whatever it is, it's important you write that down. And then when you go to bed at night, you can rehearse those if you wrote them in the morning, or you can work on them at night before you go to bed, which is a lovely way to go to sleep. Along with that idea, I have a prayer box, and it's just a simple little clay box. And I just write down things that I need more awareness from. When I pray, I ask God for awareness. Help me to see you in this situation. Help me to see your love with this problem. And I'm very specific about what I have. And keep them in there a week. And then I pray about what's going on in my life, that I need guidance. I need his support. I need to see him. And I am telling you, every week I am amazed at what's happened with those things. It's a kind of thing, it's a way to pray, because everybody says you should pray and meditate more. This is a simple way to include both. And plus it's giving you a boost, like, okay, I know I am connected to something bigger. And I do that a lot with anxiety. I remind myself that I am connected with something much bigger than what is presented here before me, whether it's, sarcoidosis or whatever you're dealing with, maybe the lung problems that come with that disease many times. If you're feeling shortness of breath, it could be your disease, but it also could be your anxiety. Because when we're anxious, many times we feel like our lungs are full, like we're short of breath, and panic attacks are entirely that way. So if you can just go into your mode of, okay, I'm looking for God in this situation, I'm pausing, I'm getting more in touch with my breath, I'm slowing down. Many times you can work through that. And then you remind yourself with your self-talk, when those voices come up, what am I going to do next time? What is going to happen to me? You remind yourself, I'm capable. I've been through this one time. I can breathe through this now. And probably you already have a network, or what I like to refer to as a tribe of healthcare workers. That's your healthcare worker, that's your best friend, that's your girlfriend or your boyfriend, your spouse, anybody in your tribe. The only rule with that is that you can call them when you need them. They're like lifelines for you. And I have no shame recommending people call people within their network or tribe when they need them. I'm in Seattle. I am a I'm a member of several different tribes because I think knowing there's other people besides you watching out for you
Yeah.
is just a very comforting thought.
I hope you're now part of the Sarcoidosis tribe as well.
Yes, I have to learn how to pronounce it first.
Sarcoidosis.
I know.
A lot of people say Sark. Yeah.
Pardon?
We have a lot of people just say Sark.
Oh,
It's
okay.
easy. So we have a lot of questions that came in. I do want to, there are quite a few questions about medications. I just wanted to remind you that the medications have to be discussed with your primary care provider and or psychiatrist, only because there are, many medications and they really have to go through your history. They have to understand your allergies. They have to talk to you very personally about what you've tried, what you didn't try, do you drink, not drink, smoke, not smoke. So please, if you feel that, you want to talk about medications, please call and schedule an appointment with your primary care provider. I strongly encourage that.
Yes, there's no shame with any of those. I
No.
sometimes people start saying, I need something, I need a drug, but I don't want to really talk about it because then they're going to think I'm crazy. That's nonsense. I mean, if you're feeling bad and there's a medication that can help you with that, and it won't affect you adversely in other areas, then it's important that you be on it, because sometimes your brain chemistry does change. Depression is real, and sometimes it needs medication, and anxiety is real, and sometimes it needs medication, and so is OCD and many of these other illnesses. But as a psychologist, I can't recommend them because I'm not an MD. And, I work with people that are on some of them. And all I can tell you is they take close monitoring, just like Irina said. So I would for sure talk to my medical care health worker.
Yeah. And I just want to add, because I'm a nurse practitioner, and, what I tell patients is, you're not ashamed to say, I have diabetes, or I have heart failure, or I have hypertension. Anxiety and depression, they're real diseases, and it does, like Mary Jo said, has to do with your brain chemistry. And many times, you just need something to help you kind of add, serotonin or dopamine, just, a little bit of those hormones to your brain, and then people feel so much better. So please don't be ashamed. And I hope that we'll battle a little bit of stigma today to say, these are real diseases, and you need to get real help. With that, Mary Jo, there was quite a few questions. As I said, we have some caregivers who are helping their loved ones who are battling with sarcoidosis. So there's one question that kind of mimics a few others, where a person says, my spouse is dealing with anxiety, but doesn't want to talk about it. How can I support my spouse in that?
Well, and that's a great question, because some people don't want to talk about it because that makes it worse for them. And those people get such bad anxiety, they just want to go to bed and pull the cover over their head. And for those people, I would say that it would be really helpful if they could write about it, if maybe they can just write about how it feels for them. And then you can you could help them go to the doctor, take them to the doctor, and talk to the doctor about it. Because honestly, when anxiety gets that difficult, that it's limiting most areas of your life, it's time to go seek a doctor's help with medication, because that person is being now managed by their anxiety, and they won't see the improvement. They won't be able to take advantage of the meditation, of trying yoga, of trying other ways to alleviate the anxiety, until they get a little bit of relief from the anxiety. And the only way that's going to happen is if they get a medication so they feel like they have a little control. The biggest part of why they don't want to talk about it is more than likely it makes them feel more out of control. And they're already just hanging on as well as they can.
Yeah. Mary Jo, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read. There was a question about quite a few questions when people are asking, I guess, how to deal with their family or family members who don't believe their symptoms. Because as I said, sarcoidosis is in some sense reminds me all the very, very different disease, but reminds me a little bit of fibromyalgia, where
Right.
for years or even decades, people thought that like it's not real, you're faking the symptoms, you're saying that, you have pain, but you don't. And finally, you know, it, we found out medical community, oh my gosh, it is a disease, they have a real pain. So do you have any tips on how person that has this, very rare and kind of strange disease can explain to their family who don't believe that that's real?
Well, I think this is the most important thing that I could tell you about that. A lot of people have issues that when they talk to their parents, and their parents and family are not very empathic. And I feel sad about that because that's where you came from. But all of life, whether you have a disease or not, is learning the frailties, the areas your family makes mistakes at. And if your family um, isn't real empathic, you're going to have to reparent yourself in that area. And the first way you reparent yourself is you got born into this family and they may or may not believe you, but you can create a family of friends that do believe you. And if you don't have a network, you need a network. So I would do things like join a support group. And if where you go to the doctor, if they don't offer a support group for this particular disease, then I would take it upon myself, or I would maybe to start one, or I would find at least 2 other patients, and physicians are usually, and healthcare workers are usually more than happy to do this. If they know other people that may be able to join, they can't give you names because of HIPAA violations, but they can tell you there's several in this area. And most of us know how to do a meetup now, and you just announce it on the internet. I just went to a meetup for a patient of mine who had fibromyalgia, and she started a meetup just online. And there were 4 people there. Now, 4 people who really got exactly what she has. And even though, just like fibromyalgia, Sarc is a lot like that because everybody's a little different. At least you have 4 people who have what you have, and they're going through what you're going through. There has never been a time when you need the support of family and friends. And the way you know you come from an empathic home is they want to get invested in learning about what you have. They want to get educated. When you tell them you're having a bad day, they say, how can I help you? When you need something, you can call them late at night and they're like, I'll be there. I will be there. Or if they live far away, they'll say, can I stay on the phone with you? Can I be here near you? That's a loving, empathic family. And if you don't have that, don't try to force yourself or expect them to change, because you can never change another person. You can only change yourself and validate yourself that my family, I wish they were more empathic, but they're not. And so what am I going to do to take care of myself? Once again, it's loving yourself enough that you're self-aware and you claim your right. I need someone who is supportive. I need a friend who wants to be part of my medical team, who wants to be educated, who, when I'm hurting, wants to hug me, wants to help me. That's the sign of someone that really likes you.
Yeah.
I saw one of the questions when you sent them to Irina. It's like, how can I make my family understand? And I mean, that breaks my heart, but you cannot make a family understand. They either are an empathic, loving family or they're not. And sometimes families judge you by how you were as a kid. Like maybe you were more sensitive, maybe you were more outspoken. And then when you get ill, you don't stop being the person you were. So there's a lot of unresolved feelings in many families that they never talked about. And if you could talk about all those issues, that would be wonderful. But when you're hurting and you're feeling sick and you can't breathe well, you're scared, that's not the time to try.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I like that how you, brought it back to that, that relationship with yourself is number one, and you need to really work on that before you work on your relationship with others. And I strongly believe, just like you, that you can't control anybody's reactions or anybody's feelings or thoughts. You can only control yours. So, when people are trying very hard to, make somebody understand, that's I think that's where they get a lot of resistance. But I would also add that sometimes we as people, and I think women in particularly, we don't always say what we mean, and we, like we can come home from work and you think you look tired, you're tired, and you hope that your husband's going to see it and be like, "Oh, honey, are you tired?" And if they ask you how you feeling, you're like, "Fine." But on the back of our minds, I think we want more. We want our spouses to read us more, to understand us. But what I've learned, and I'm not a psychologist, but I feel like that's the love I have for psychology and just, in general, maybe what I know now, what I knew then, what I know now. When I was in school, I would have probably picked psychology or psychiatry. But I think that we also need to be a little bit more forthcoming with our thoughts and not mask them within, I'm tired but not tired kind of thing. And I think it's very, very important to ask for help and to be straightforward about it and say, "I'm tired, I'm not feeling well. I would like for you to cook dinner tonight, or I'll cook dinner. I would really appreciate if you clean, after dinner." And I think that's going to help a lot of relationships, because I think we just think that we're saying things that we're not saying.
That's right. Well, and I think too, whenever we get an illness, and I've seen this with clients, they automatically put themselves as weaker. They say, "Oh, I have an illness, I'm flawed, and I'm not worthy." They get into this whole "I'm unworthy, I'm a burden." And that makes people less likely to speak up what they need. And I get a lot of couples in, and one of the partners will say, "Why didn't you tell me?" And they say back, "Why didn't you look at me and see my face? You can see the pain and my body posture on me. I can't believe that you would just hear fine and think I'm fine." But once again, we're not perfect beings, and we shouldn't be. And couples, even without this disease, struggle to understand and communicate. So I like what you said. If we could all take a vow of just being better at communication, I think this illness would be a lot easier. If we were able to own it and say to ourselves, "I have this, but I am not this illness. I have Sarc, but I'm not Sarc. I'm still a vivacious woman, or I'm a strong, empathic man, but I happen to have this illness." Just because you get sick doesn't mean you become the sickness, and you mustn't let yourself. You must always be inside, like, how can I help my body? How can I help my body deal with this? And we know some of the things that really help. Eating a healthy diet is going to make you feel better. And it's one of the things you can do to feel more confident about yourself. We know a little bit of movement, except on those very bad days when you're so fatigued and achy, or you can't get your breath. But a little bit of movement every day changes our brain chemistry. It makes us less anxious, less depressed, and it actually does make us feel better about our sense of self. Our self-esteem goes up when we move, no matter if it's a little thing like, "Okay, I'm going to walk around the yard." That's a big deal when you're not feeling well or you're feeling achy. We know connecting with other people is so important. And so once again, when you get this diagnosis, or even before, it's important you have a network or a tribe of people who are invested in you. And I don't mean financially, I mean people who are emotionally caring about you. And that may include your family, it may not. It depends where you come from.
Yeah.
If you know of someone who has this illness and you're the caretaker, it's extremely important that you get educated, because the more you're part of their team, their education team, the more you understand how this illness can work and the possibility of what it's doing to your partner, the better able you're going to be to validate and love your partner. So
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Mary Jo, there's again a question that mimics a few other questions where person is having the most amount of anxiety when they're feeling pain. And so
yeah,
they wanted to, and I think I know what you're going to say, but they wanted to ask you how to deal with anxiety and pain together. But I also want to say there was a very similar question where somebody says that they're already on anxiety medication. I want to tell you, as a healthcare professional, that just because you're on medication does not mean that you are on optimal dose. Because normally, we are always taught to start low and go slow. And many providers, if you are not going to be clear about your symptoms and you come in for a checkup and they'll say, how are you feeling? And you'll say, I'm feeling better. They're going to automatically assume that everything is working out well. So you have to be very honest. And when you go to see your provider who prescribed an anxiety medication, you have to say that I'm still having quite a bit of anxiety. They'll give you an anxiety scale where they can hopefully kind of track your numbers more or less objectively, and then they can always increase the medications. It could be that your dose is suboptimal. It could be that maybe it's not a right medication for you. So remember, it's almost like I'm going to say something about like a diabetic patient, but we always up the insulin if the sugars are still not in control. But a lot of people don't think about that with anxiety and depression medication. They think that, okay, well, we'll kind of, we went from 10 to 8 and that's good enough. Well, no, you need to figure out what your level of comfort is and then try to get there. And it's a lot of trial and error and it takes time. So that's my advice. But Mary Jo, what would you say for somebody that has, I guess, increased anxiety when they feel pain?
well, I love what you said, and I agree 100%. I think one thing that made me feel better, and I had a cerebral aneurysm that burst in 2003, and I almost lost my life. But I had brain surgery, and I had to relearn a lot of new things to help my body heal from that and my mind. But one thing, and I had terrible pain because after the brain surgery, and they put a clip in, and then when the blood touches the brain, it really makes you sick. Like those two, there's a membrane separating them. Blood is a toxin to the brain. So when I would get these severe headaches, I was on medication, but it didn't always help it. And so what I would get very anxious, and I would start feeling like I might die and nobody would see me. What I did was I went through a checklist. How can I, with my consciousness, help my body? And I know one of the things that help my body, and it helps my patients when they have SARC or they have fibromyalgia or chronic cancer pain, anything like that, is to relax. Relaxing when you have pain, it's like what comes first? It's terrible. But I told myself, if I could be strong enough I know what makes me feel good. I get into a bubble bath. And when I run the water, it's almost like a cue for me. It's a mental cue. Okay. And then I start breathing deeper. I put in my favorite bubbles and I turn on soft music. I have candles, and I always have candles lit around my tub. And then this is all part of a ritual helping me calm down. Because what I found is when I can calm down, and now I'm pretty good at meditation and trigger points. I know there's certain trigger points that help you calm down, but I didn't know those until I researched them. And then I went to someone who did biofeedback. They taught me my trigger points, what could help relieve the pain. So much of our anxiety for pain comes from us feeling inadequate to deal with it. And that's why we're afraid and we reach for a pill, we reach for a medication. And then if that medication doesn't work, we get more afraid when we have pain. And it's the fear that drives the anxiety. Then we're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Or we're out somewhere and we have pain, but we don't have our pill. We forgot that we are our own healers in many ways. I can make my body relax and you can make your body relax, but you can't do it without practice. When you listen to this, you'd have to listen to this every day. That's why when you practice calming methods, and I'm encouraging you all to make a list of what calms you down and now start practicing. You do the first one tonight when you go to bed. Start your calming. Okay, I'm going to play soft music and have a plan. If I wake up, I'm going to go through a mantra. Here's 3 mantras, and I start thinking about them, trying to remember them. I'm going to breathe slower. I'm going to listen to my mantras. If it gets so bad that I can't go to sleep, then I'm going to get up. I'm going to allow myself to read a little bit. And I'm not going to even allow the fear to start coming in about what if I can't go back to sleep. It's taking control of what you can control. And what you can control is your reaction. That's the only thing you can control. But do you know there's an incredible power in your reaction, especially if you use your reactions to heal your body instead of scare your body. And there's so many scary things. Other people will tell you, oh my God, that could get out of control. Or, oh my gosh, if this doesn't happen, the whole government will be out of control. Come on now. You know, I can't control the government. I can't control this disease, but I can control my reaction to my fear, to my anxiety. I will maybe need medication too, and there's no shame in that.
Right.
But I'm not going to make it so that without that medication, I turn into a victim of scar.
Yeah. And I just want to add, just medically, when we get anxious or when we get scared, we release this, hormone that helps us battle stress. That's called cortisol. And we have a little thing in our brain that's called amygdala, and amygdala just starts hijacking the brain, and we're making more and more cortisol, and it's a stress hormone. The more you get upset, the more cortisol you make, and it's a vicious cycle. So your recommendation about relaxing, for some people, it might be like, well, what do you mean? I can't. But when you think about it medically, that the way for your body to stop reacting in that way really belongs to your brain. And you can just start by slowing down your breathing. And I usually say that, the story that when millions of years ago, we were running from tigers, we had to get this, amygdala hijack where, you can't think about peeing or eating or drinking. You're only running because your life depends on it. But then that didn't happen very often. And we didn't have this kind of stress all the time. Whereas now, with politics and COVID, it's nonstop. So we need to teach ourselves how to kind of come down. And also we need to learn from our friends animals who, somebody runs from the wolf, whatever, the little rabbit, and then the minute the wolf is gone, the rabbit comes down, starts breathing slower, and probably 2 minutes later they forget about the wolf. But we keep thinking about it. We kept kind of, marinating in our, negative thoughts. So I also years ago, when I was in school, and we were just taught, well, tell your patients to deep breathe. And I'm like, well, whatever, what does it do? But now medically, there were many experiments and scientific studies that says by slowing down your breathing, you're physically giving your brain the chemical reaction to say there is no danger anymore. Like
Right,
that rabbit that ran out of the wolf and now there's no danger. So by breathing slowly and deeply, we're telling our brains that there's no more stress. And so we come down. So it's a wonderful and very needed advice that a lot of people still are not thinking about it. And like you said, they're going for, pain medication, which again, if you need it, you need it, but it shouldn't be the first and only response to pain.
right.
Um,
Well, I work with a lot of people who, in the medical world, the new, it used to be, how satisfied are you with this visit? Or there was a checklist. Now the new thing, and how I believe the medical community helped people, actually it enabled people to get hooked on opiates and these kinds of drugs, is we started making being pain-free
mhm.
of our repertoire. Like, okay, you're not a good doctor if your patients aren't completely pain-free. And what ended up happening is they were just, because they were so worried that patients would like them, maybe they had a private practice or they just, they didn't want any bad reviews, they started writing out scripts for pain, more opiates, more pain drugs. But we've forgotten that a beautiful part of the humans and the human anatomy and how we're designed. We are designed to heal ourselves. But, I see a lot of couples and like the husband will say, my wife is a control freak. And I'm like, really? Because when someone says I'm a control freak, that means I control myself. But what happens is, for some reason, we try to control things that aren't within our control. And that's what makes us anxious. A true control freak would be like, okay, so this is really painful and it makes me anxious. So I'm going to talk to my healthcare provider and I'm going to see how they can work with me to help control my pain. And in that sense, you would have the best marriage. You'd be working with a physician or a medical worker who was advocating for your best interests, your best health. And you would be willing to say, I am going to advocate for myself too. I'm going to make myself stronger. I'm going to empower myself by using my normal healing abilities. In a way, we're all supermen and superwomen because we are able to heal ourselves, but we can't heal ourselves when we're terrified of this anxiety or this pain. And so always the first step is going to be becoming self-aware and saying, okay, this is happening in my body. How can I help this feeling in my body be minimized or be reduced? And that's always going to start with, what am I saying to myself? Where is my list of joy triggers? Or I call them joy triggers, but it's the things that make me feel joyful, the things that will help calm me. And when I have a client who has any kind of panic disorders, the very first thing we do is I ask them to bring in like a shoebox. And in that shoebox, I have them put things in there that tangibly calm them down. Many times they'll bring a blouse sprayed with their mother's perfume. They remember that as a child. Or if it's a couple, it might be a woman who is married to someone and she loves her husband's smell, and that helps her calm down. We know that just simple tactics, like if you're home or you're at work, if you need to calm down fast and get control of yourself, if you're starting to feel really anxious or panicky, just go to the kitchen, open up the freezer, and just breathe in that ice cold air. That resets the brain. And it's enough of a reset that you can start breathing deeply. Breathe deeply that cold air from the freezer, and then breathe into the count of 5, breathe out to the count of 7. Do that 3 times. And then when you start feeling your heart rate go down, then start, okay, what else is going to make me feel good? What else is in my care package? I've got music I like. Because sometimes panic attacks or worries happen in the car. Sometimes they happen in the middle of the night. Whatever it is, some people like the feel of silk. They're tactile, and if they feel something soft, it helps calm them down. Smells are big, sounds are big. And mostly you have control of these. I mean, you are in charge. You can do this. You're completely perfect the way you are. Medication is good, but you are better, because if you're aware and you're willing to take action, and I keep saying, so many people allow themselves to feel victimized by this illness. And that's really a poor position to take, because if you become a victim, then the disease is calling the shots. And that's always a disadvantage for you.
Yeah, I would say a good doctor will say diabetic patient or sarcoidosis patient, and a great doctor will say patient with diabetes and patient with sarcoidosis. So
Yes.
I think you're right. It's turning the corner now, where a lot of medical professionals are recognizing and realizing that disease is not a person; it's a person with a disease, not the sarcoidosis patients. Wonderful advice. I do want to we have a few more minutes. I wanted to go over a few questions that I think I'll answer only because it has to do a little bit with like this coordinating of care. And there was a question about what to do if the doctor doesn't believe me and I don't like to go to the office. I can just tell you, as a healthcare provider, we are all free to choose, and you absolutely should not stay with anybody who you don't feel connected to. I always say, your primary care provider, it's almost like a marriage. Like, you have to want it to be in the office, you have to want it to talk to that person, and you want to feel safe and comfortable. So please don't stay with anybody. The times of, HMOs and you sign up with a doctor for a year are over. And thank God, if you have insurance or you don't have insurance, you're still free to choose and try to find somebody. And when you do look for doctors, there are many support groups. We have one on Facebook, but talk to people in your state, in your county, and ask them who is the good doctor that understands sarcoidosis, and just switch. There's no shame about that. And another question was about a person who was really anxious to go to a doctor's appointment, and when she gets there, or he, I'm sorry, they kind of break down, they start crying, and they can't get, I guess, their point across. So my suggestion is you need to start writing your questions and everything that bothers you way before the appointment. So when you come, and this is for anybody, when you go to your primary care provider appointment or specialist, you have to be ready. Here's the symptoms I'm having. Here's the questions I have. What are my next steps? Always be prepared, because if you have a great doctor, they're going to take some time and ask you that. But most of the time, it's 6 minutes on average per patient. So it's more about, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Do you need refills? Goodbye. So you need to be prepared. I always, I'm encouraging you to use, we have a lot of resources on our website, the questionnaire, the journals, please use them and be ready. And Mary Jo will probably just get one last question. And I'm getting a lot of like, wow, this is great, this is fantastic. So thank you again, and so much. You've been really bringing a lot of information and hope and techniques to patients. But there was one, somebody asked what they can do on a regular basis, like daily basis, to reduce the anxiety or stress. And even the person says, I find that routine helps me. So is there anything you would recommend? And I wanted to, after you talk, I want to say something too that I'm doing that I think will be very helpful too. I just don't want to forget.
Okay, well, psychologically, the best thing you can do to reduce stress is to move. And the reports coming, like most of the literature I've seen, suggest stretching, especially like the cat stretch, the cobra stretch, the yoga type stretches, and also, so any kind of yoga, and also any kind of moving of the lower extremities of bigger muscles. So I usually, if people can't move well, I suggest they sit in a chair and chair march. Just bring one foot up and then the other. Do that through commercials of their favorite TV program. Do it twice a day. If they can walk, I suggest 10 minutes, 3 times a day. If you can walk 10 minutes, 3 times a day, you can reset some of that anxiety. The other thing is, if you're really anxious, some things like putting your head, breathing in ice cold air really helps. Chewing gum helps, because I get a lot of patients who medicate with food and with alcohol, with substances they can put in their mouth. And so I think chewing gum is a way to help with that. I also do a lot of, personally, I do a lot of breathing, and I have a prayer chair. And when I'm really anxious, I make myself sit in that chair. And if I cannot say any other prayer, I will say the Our Father, because somehow that's a rhythm, it's breathing and getting into a familiar rhythm. We know the heart works with that. And before I know it, I'm breathing slower and I'm feeling much better.
Wonderful. Thank you. I would add that I meditate, but I couldn't meditate for years because I always thought meditation was, when you have to clear your mind and don't think of anything. And I'm like, I can't do that. But I've learned years ago that there's so many different meditations, and there are some meditations, like you said, mantras, where you actually talk and you are subconsciously in your head, you're doing something, and it is meditation. It helped me tremendously. And then I recommend for people to read a book by Sean Eckert that's called Happiness Advantage, where he's a Harvard professor, and it blew my mind. And I'm doing a lot of what he said. But one of the things is, every morning, write 3 things that you are grateful about that happened to you in the past 24 hours. And it could be very trivial things. I had great hamburger for dinner last night, or my husband washed dishes, or the weather was great, or I went for a walk. It doesn't have to be life-shattering events or, something grand. And by doing that, I recognize, and in my previous work, we would meet every morning for a red tape meeting. And I would tell people, like, let's, write 3 things you're grateful about, and then let's share them. And they were like little things, I had great pancakes. And I can tell you the morale of the team increased a lot, the productivity increased, and personally, everybody started feeling better. So I would encourage you to read the Happiness Advantage book and just do that. There's 3 little things, 3 little things that happened in the past 24 hours that you're grateful for. And I know a lot of you are battling with a lot of, difficult things, and, pain is one of them. But maybe if your pain was 5, then maybe you're grateful that your pain was 5 and not 10. So you can always find positive things to be grateful for, and turn anything into positivity. So with that, Mary Jo, I want to thank you so much. It was really, really wonderful. We are very grateful to have you. You will, you not only help people that are online right now, but we have always, hundreds and thousands of views of the webinars later. So hopefully you'll be able to help a lot more people. We're grateful to have you. Everybody on the line, we want to wish you health and prosperity. And we're all here for you. Please go to lifeandbreath.org, see what resources you have. Go to Facebook and Instagram, become our friends in our groups. And we are here for you. We're here to support you in the memory of Sean's mother. Wishing you everybody great night. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you all. And God bless us all. And one day at a time, one step at a time.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.